I don't remember deciding to become independent. It wasn't a resolution or a speech to myself. It was more like a slow closing of doors. At 16, I took my first job because I wanted my own money. At 17, I added a second because I didn't want to ask my parents for anything extra. By the time I was finishing high school, working felt normal, necessary, safer than hoping someone else would come through. My parents called it good responsibility. My sister's schedule, by comparison, was described as finding herself. I didn't resent her for it. Not then. We were different people. I learned early that if I wanted something, tuition, books, a used car that wouldn't die on the highway, I had to solve it myself. She learned that time was flexible and options would appear. College was 4 years of exhaustion stitched together with stubbornness. I worked 3 jobs some semesters. I skipped trips, skipped spring breaks, skipped the part of youth people get nostalgic about. When I graduated with debt, my parents hugged me and said they were proud. Then we all moved on. At 26, I bought a condo. It wasn't flashy. 1 bedroom, thin walls, a mortgage that made me nervous in the quiet moments before sleep. I didn't throw a party. I didn't even tell many people. It felt personal, like something that could disappear if I talked about it too loudly. My parents found out through my sister. The shift was subtle at first. Less warmth when they asked how work was going. Comments framed as jokes. "Must be nice," said with a smile that didn't quite land. I told myself I was imagining it. Then my mother called one afternoon and said, "Carefully, your sister's been having a hard time." I waited. "She feels like you're setting an impossible standard." I didn't understand. I still don't, fully. I hadn't compared us. I hadn't offered advice. I hadn't said a word about her choices. My life had just continued in direction I'd been pushing it for years. "She thinks you're making her look like a failure," my mother said. The sentence sat between us, heavy and wrong. I felt a familiar instinct rise, fix it, smooth it, apologize even if you don't know for what. But something stopped me. "I didn't do anything to her," I said. My father took over the calls after that. He spoke in a calm, managerial tone, the one he used when conflict needed to be framed as logistics. He suggested I be more sensitive, that I downplay my achievements, that I consider how my success affected the family dynamic. The word success sounded almost accusatory in his mouth. I tried. I really did. I stopped sharing updates. I deflected questions. I shrank myself in conversations I used to enter freely. The tension didn't ease. It hardened. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. It wasn't dramatic, just formal language informing me that my parents were pursuing legal action regarding financial inequity connected to family contributions made during my upbringing. I read it 3 times before it made sense. They were claiming that because they had supported me emotionally while I worked through school, I owed restitution. That my early independence had benefited unfairly from a household that had, in their words, enabled my advancement over my sibling. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after that, not crying, not angry, just stunned by how quietly something could break. The court date came faster than I expected. Sitting in that room, I felt smaller than I ever had, working 3 jobs or studying at 4 in the morning. The story of my life was being translated into claims and counters, stripped of tone and intention. My parents spoke about fairness, about family unity, about how outcomes mattered more than effort. When it was my turn, I didn't perform. I didn't justify my worth. I answered questions, provided records, pay stubs, tuition statements, lease agreements, years of proof that my independence wasn't symbolic. It was documented. The judge listened, asked clarifying questions, then explained, gently but firmly, that emotional discomfort did not constitute legal debt, that personal achievement did not create liability, that the court could not redistribute outcomes to equalize feelings. It was over in less than an hour. Outside the courthouse, my parents didn't look at me. My sister cried. I wanted to reach for her. I didn't. We didn't speak for months after that. When we did, the conversations were careful and thin, like ice you test with the edge of your foot. Something fundamental had shifted. Not just trust, but the shape of the relationship itself. I still live in the condo. I still work hard. I still feel a flicker of guilt sometimes, like a reflex that hasn't realized the danger has passed. There was no victory, no apology that matched the damage. Just a quiet understanding that effort doesn't guarantee closeness, and fairness doesn't always feel kind. I learned that day that independence has a cost people don't warn you about, not exhaustion or loneliness, but the moment when your success becomes evidence against you. I didn't change who I was after court. I just stopped trying to make myself smaller so others could feel taller. And that choice, more than anything I bought or earned, is the one that finally stuck.